get through this.
Easy for listening. I wasn't able to do it. Easy for dancing. I'm not a great lover of cats. That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Not me. That's my fear.
You're a disgrace, you are.
Hello and welcome to One-on-One Shadowboxing Have Your Say. Today my guest at WTV Studios is Jeff Payne, Dr. Jeff Payne.
Good day.
Who is, what's your practice, Jeff?
I'm
Tell
a
the-
research scientist, a consultant in science.
And how long you are in science and how long you involved in research?
I have over 40 years professional experience. So I got my PhD at Monash University and did a cycle of postdoctoral work and research in institutions back at university, Telstra research laboratories, worked in Japan for a few years, so I've been around. I was a member of the former Environment Minister's panel of experts here in Western Australia some years ago.
That's all good. So you got a very big and versatile background
Yes,
in
I've
research.
published in diverse areas.
What is your specialty? What's your favorite field?
Well, currently I'm devoted to eliminating the practice of fluoridation worldwide. So I'm a member of the Fluoride Action Network, which consists of several thousand activists who are professional scientists and medicos. And our target is to save the remaining 5% of the world population who are currently fluoridated. We want to, already 95% of the world's population are not fluoridated. So we want to work on that.
Never been fluoridated?
Or some have been fluoridated and had it cancelled. So in Europe, for example, there were a series of cancellations across Europe from 1970s to 80s. The only place in Europe fluoridating at the moment is the Republic of Ireland. The rest of the
in the European Union?
Yes, yes.
Well, 28 states, one state is remains.
Yes, and that's
Ireland.
that's to aid some industrial interests to dispose of this super toxic industrial waste.
So let's see how fluoridation is started, because you got an article, The Science of Fluoridation. How could you have a science for something which is useless, like fluoridation?
Yes, well, in my lecture tour that I've been doing in Western Australia the last couple of weeks, I just talk about the needs of industry to dispose of waste. So there are three main waste sources for fluoride. One is the phosphate fertiliser industry, and that's the major source of the poison that's used in Western Australian water, coming from Wesfarmers' own CSBP. And they are not legally allowed to vent that to air, water, land or sea under international convention.
Because of the
because
nature
it's
of
so
the...
super toxic, yes.
So fluoride is super toxic
yes,
for humans.
Fluoride is element number 9 in the periodic table. It's indestructible, and so the element fluorine is called fluoride when it's negatively charged, and it's a universal poison which impacts virtually every enzyme system known. So it has no useful biological function in mammals at all. It kills all mammals. It also kills a number of other life forms. There are, however, some ancient life forms that were exposed to it and developed special elimination techniques from their cells, but we don't have that, so we can't avoid it. If we are hit with fluoride, we will be damaged.
So are we hit with fluoride? That's the question, because for the audience, at most, I think we every day got our dose of fluoride.
It's very difficult to avoid.
Why we got the fluoride in our drinking water in WA?
As really the only mechanism, if the company making the waste doesn't want to spend the money to be environmentally responsible, if the company's shareholders are not prepared to direct the company to do the right thing and to immobilise that fluoride as a solid source and protect it, like effectively they would have to protect it above ground like you would do with radioactive waste to prevent it getting into groundwater. There is natural fluoride pollution in groundwater in Western Australia. In Quindelop, for example, it goes up to about 2.6 parts per million, and the Western Australian government spends millions of dollars to take fluoride out of the water.
But in here, they're putting into the water.
Yes, yes.
What is the concentration in the drinking water of fluoride?
Around about 0.7 to 1.1 parts per million, and they put more fluoride in cooler parts of Australia in the mistaken belief that there's a minimum dose required. That's been totally discredited.
For what?
But
Minimum dose required for what?
the whole aim, the whole
Yes.
expressed aim is purely to improve dental health. And of course that has been discredited totally. In 2015 there was a very interesting, devastating report against the fluoride industry done by the fluoride industry itself, or effectively a university funded by it. So the so-called Cochrane collaboration, which has established a reputation for gold standard in scientific health review, funded by Colgate's for over 40 years at the University of Manchester, looked at all of the available evidence of the tiny number of people still fluoridated in public water systems and concluded that there was no valid evidence that it had any useful impact whatsoever.
So we know that fluoride in water, if we're taking it, not help our health
Yeah,
of
it
the
won't
teeth.
help your teeth and it'll do devastating damage. It'll increase cancer rates, which has been known since the 1950s. It increases your risk of heart attack, stroke, sudden deaths from rupture of your aorta. It damages virtually every organ in your body. As I say, it's the most, even on the single issue of proven reduction of IQ for children, that should be enough to eliminate the process.
Okay.
But we'd still find people who are totally ignorant. They don't know of the toxicity. This is the toxic dose, which you might be able to see. That's enough there. About 5 milligrams per kilogram is enough to kill 50% of people. So that's how you define toxicity. You have the LD50, the dose that will kill 50% of people outright. So if you were to take that, you could toss a coin, are you going to live or die? And if you didn't die, we'd rush you to hospital, have your stomach pumped. They would try desperately to put something in to counter the circulating fluoride in your system. But you would suffer permanent lifelong damage despite the fact that you didn't actually die.
So if I take that one, I got a chance to die immediately?
Yes.
Or
well,
take me to
it
hospital?
could take minutes, it could take hours, but you would statistically
Definitely
50% chance of dying or just being saved with permanent damage. So that's the reality. And so, one tanker load of the industrial waste from CSBP is enough to kill the entire population of Western Australia and several times over if they were to get it.
So WA, we got the fluoride in the water because the decision is made when?
1966, the Act was brought in, and it's a pretty evil Act. It has a panel of 6 people who are unelected. They're largely unknown. We know the names of 3 of the current panel members. We want to get the names of the remaining 3, and we want those people to suffer the pressure to justify themselves to the public because they're acting as hooded executioners, effectively.
So what is the name of the panel?
It is the Western Australian Fluoridation Consultative Panel, and
Yes.
they're tasked by the Minister for Health.
The Health Minister.
Yes.
So in the Ministry of Health here in this state, we got the list of the people, members of the panel.
Yes.
But that list is not
They
public.
keep that secret. It's the only panel,
In
such
the Health.
panel in Western Australia kept secret, and we're in the process
What is
of
the
revealing.
reason for that?
Well, of course, under the Act, those people are given specific immunity from liability for prosecution for damage or harm caused to anyone in the state by their recommendation.
Such thing exist. Immunity.
Well, under
Guys,
a specific
you
Act
are
of
really
Parliament.
special. There, you are really special sitting on that panel.
However, it's conditional upon them acting in good faith. Now, I believe that if we could find a young pro bono lawyer who wanted to make a name for him or herself, they would be able to take those 6 people to court because over the last few years, the Fluoride Free WA organisation has presented that panel with over 100 peer-reviewed, internationally published papers on fluoride toxicology.
And have they got any answer from the panel?
Basically, they've been dismissed offhand, and that panel refuses to meet with representatives from the Fluoride Free WA or people like myself or any other respectable scientists.
So that shows up the good faith of the panel members.
That shows the lack of good faith of the panel.
I think the good faith, I think.
No, they're doing everything possible to squirm and wiggle out of the fact that
And who's
they're
paying the
poisoning
wage,
people.
or is it just a
Well, a lot of
voluntary
them are
panel?
public
or-
servants, so it includes the CEO of the Water Corporation, it includes the CEO of the State Chemistry Centre, it includes a man called Richard Lugg, and who's the Health Department, I believe. We've got
Could be involved the state scientist? the chief scientist of the state?
Not according to what it could be, because we still have three names that we don't know. It does include a member of the Australian Medical Association. It does include a member of the Australian Dental Association. And interestingly, it includes a totally unqualified delegate from the Australian Local Government Association.
Oh, yes.
Just someone randomly chosen from anyone willing to do it. So
six
there's
people.
There's no qualified toxicologist on the panel, and as I say, they're
Don't
refusing
need that because they're working with toxic, so they don't need the qualification because they know it's toxic.
Exactly, they know it's toxic. They don't want to talk about it being toxic, and they're desperate to protect themselves.
Politicians' responsibility who are sitting in parliament and the premiers of this state is lies. So can have responsibility for their decision and maintaining that sort of system, like the potato board, which has just been demolished last week.
Right.
So have they got responsibility?
Oh, of course they're responsible, but they give themselves immunity as well. They pass acts, and right around Australia, I believe they may have left a loophole in South Australia. I'm not sure if they've actually given themselves formal immunity, but in Victoria, for example, many years ago, they passed an act to make no member of parliament, present or past, liable. And those
for
members of parliament, of course...
For any decision,
and of course, one of the key things in this is that the politicians are very proud of themselves that they've denied people the fundamental democratic right to vote on the issue. There's never been a referendum on whether people of Western Australia should be fluoridated. If it were held, of course, it would be an overwhelming collapse it would be turned off overnight. And so you find governments desperately trying to stop the promotion of a referendum on the issue. So it's very interesting. Western Australian politics is shifting now. During my visit, I found that there's a movement to create a new political party to protect pure water. So it would embrace the anti-fracking community, the people who want to preserve ancient water, and the anti-fluoride campaigns.
Okay, Jeff, on that note, we have to go to the break, and after the break, we're coming back and talk more about fluoride and other toxics in life which can kill people. Stay with us and come back after the break.